What if recovering from a cyber attack could take minutes instead of months? Well, in today's episode, recorded live at IGEL's Now and Next event in Frankfurt, I'm joined by James Millington, VP of Product Marketing and Industry Solutions at IGEL. We're going to talk about a subject that rarely gets the attention that it deserves: endpoint recovery. Because James is going to share how IGEL's new dual boot business continuity solution is helping organisations reboot compromised endpoints directly into a secure operating environment, restoring access almost instantly. Because we're going to explore why most disaster recovery plans focus on data centres rather than devices that people actually use, and why this gap has persisted for so long. So you can expect us to discuss the wider transformation happening within IGEL, from its expanding partner ecosystem and zero trust initiatives to its growing role in operational technology and manufacturing. Yep, and in true James Millington style, we even touch on his unlikely career shift from DJ decks to data security, showing how rhythm and timing can matter in more ways than one. A quick thank you to our sponsor for supporting this mission to make technology more accessible and more relatable, and their backing helps me produce over 60 thoughtful interviews a month and share how innovation is continuously changing our world. Let's be honest, security often sounds complicated. Firewalls, segmentation, access policies, it's a lot. But Nord Layer takes the complexity away, and in less than 10 minutes, you can set it up across your business and protect every employee connection. And they do that by blending VPN, zero trust access, and malware protection into one clean dashboard. Yep, no hardware, no long calls with support, just toggle it on and get back to work. For me, it's the kind of practical solution that I wish existed when I first started working remotely. So if you've been waiting for a security tool that your whole team can actually use without needing a degree in network engineering, NordLayer is it. So please head to nordlayer.com/techtalksdaily and don't forget to use the code TechDaily-28 for 28% off. Let's get James onto the podcast now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is James Millington. I'm Vice President of Product Marketing and Industry Solutions at IGEL.
Now, one of the things I love doing on this podcast is showing my guest's origin story. And after a little research, I uncovered that in another life, you used to be a DJ. So tell me more about that period and also what it was that made you transition into tech. There's got to be a story there, right?
So I suppose I started in the early 90s, which was at university. I went to university to study tech, but had some fun with the DJing along there. Carried that on for another 12 years alongside, getting started in tech. And I started in antivirus, and then I was lucky enough to get a job working for Citrix back in the day, and have gone pretty much along the EUC ladder from Citrix. Spent 4 years at Imprivata, so very much in healthcare, and then 8 years at VMware prior to the Broadcom acquisition. Again, looking very much after healthcare and then other industry solutions as well. And now lucky enough to join IGEL. But I think that the interesting, or for me at least, the interesting part in joining IGEL was that I didn't join IGEL because of VDI.
Yeah.
I think, VDI, IGEL should be every single endpoint for VDI and DAS. Check.
Yeah. Got
that. What really interested me was that I spent a year working in an IoT security company, an Israeli security startup, been around for about 6 years. What was really fascinating was they didn't have a single Windows application. No VDI, no DAS. Everything was SaaS-based. And a friend of mine who was at IGEL called me up and said, "Hey, we've got an opening. It'd be great if you could come and talk to us." And I looked at what I was using, and I had a $1,500 MacBook, and all I used was the keyboard, the memory, the screen, and the internet connection of it. I thought, well, this could be an IGEL endpoint. It would be much more cost effective. It's more secure. I think there's something really interesting here. And as you've seen over the last few days, the rate of innovation that is happening at IGEL from, like I say, check on VDI, that's a definite, but with SaaS, with the security partners that you've seen, with the move to zero trust, and even into the operational technology world, the OT world, I think that's where the innovation's happening, and that's why it's time to take a fresh look at IGEL.
And a few years ago, I spoke with you on the Citrix podcast where we also met in person in Miami earlier this year. And I think back then you were excited about IGEL's hypervisor. We were talking about that. But what's been keeping you busy since we last spoke way back in March?
Yes, the really fascinating thing that has happened is about 2 weeks ago, we launched IGEL Business Continuity and Disaster Recovery. The conversation really started just after Miami, really. We had been you've been able to use a UD Pocket to boot a device for some time into an IGEL OS. And the conversation that really happened was around organizations that are getting hit by ransomware, malware, and other types of attack. And we've seen that, you can use a UD Pocket type USB solution, plug in and boot the device, but there are logistical issues with that. It's got to be by the machine. It's got to be ideally taped to the back of the machine. It's got to be onboarded. They've got to be deployed, put out there, and then hopefully they're going to be available. So we took a fresh look and we created a piece of technology called Dual Boot. And it is the ability to deploy an IGEL partition next to the Windows partition. You can use your favorite Windows deployment tools to get this there, so you don't have to decommission a device, you don't have to bring it in. You can deploy the IGEL OS right next to the Windows OS. And in the event that the Windows partition gets ransomware, malware, or fails for some reason, normally, to recover that device under while there's an attack going on, this is why you see organizations that are down for weeks, months. Most organizations that we spoke to can tell you all about their high availability for their data center. And you can happily chat about the millions of dollars that have been invested, the solutions, the connection between the primary and the secondary data center, how quick the data updates happen between that, and how long it takes them to fail over to it. When we've had the conversations about what about the endpoints, the conversation has generally been, we've got a few laptops in a cupboard. We're going to break those out. Okay, how many laptops do you have? About 20. How many employees do you have? About 5,000. Okay. And so anything else to that plan? Well, we'll send a guy down to Best Buy or Currys or somewhere to go buy whatever they've got in stock. Now, if you've ever tried to buy anything from Currys for your English, that in itself can take days. So the point is, the recovery for endpoints is in the days, weeks, months. With the IGEL Dual Boot, you can get access recovered for users in minutes. What organizations have told us is if you can get my users to Office 365 and Teams, and you can get them communicating, that is a massive win. Then we can coordinate with all of the stuff, what's going on, who can talk to customers, what we need to put out publicly. We can then coordinate. So really, that was a very long answer to the question of what we've been doing. The business continuity and disaster recovery solution has been getting fantastic response from customers, from partners, and the analysts that we've spoken to, because there really isn't a solution that focuses on quick recovery of the endpoint connectivity for the user itself. All the data? Yeah. VDI and DAS as a backup? Yeah. But what are you using to connect to them? And that's what BCDR does.
It's such an important topic that we don't talk about enough. And I think over dinner last night, you were talking about that this area that we're talking about is completely overlooked in IT. And one of the things we've seen in the UK this year is cyber attacks on M&S and Land Rover, Jaguar, and they've been down for weeks and months. So tell me a little bit more about why you think it's overlooked. You don't hear anything from any of the research companies or?
Honestly, I have been waiting. So I've spoken to a large number of customers, and we've spoken to a large number of analysts now across different firms. And I've been waiting for somebody to say, oh no, you've completely missed this section over here with all these solutions in there. I had one analyst in Germany who said, he said to me, I've been in this industry 30 years. He said, I always have vendors coming to me telling me how they've got something new. He said, and I always tell them 5 other vendors that are doing exactly what they think is new, and they've been doing it for years. And he said, with this one, I've got nothing. It's another large company again. And this was talking to the analyst that specialized in BC and DR. And he said, I think this has fallen into the too difficult box, or there's just not a good solution available. Yes, there's solutions for backing up the data from the endpoint. Absolutely. Yes, you can build, this is one of the value propositions of desktop as a service, is you can have your build sitting there waiting and then be elastic with it if something strikes, and you can build that out. But every time, what are you going to connect to it with is either the laptop's in the cupboard, potentially BYO, but then that comes with all sorts of security risks in itself. Otherwise, we had one of the early customers that's been looking at this, and one of the things that's been fascinating, and one of the things that hopefully if people listening to the podcast, it's actually starting to make organizations have the conversation about the endpoint. So one of the early customers that said, okay, we need this. They've sat down, and it's forced them to take a look at what they would actually need to do to recover Windows. So we're not recovering Windows. Yeah. We're recovering access for the user from the in-place compromised hardware. So they can just reboot it into IGEL OS and then connect to whatever the services are, the critical services that they need. So this company is going, okay, so we do that. Great. What next? And how do we actually go and recover the desktops? How do we recover Windows on the desktop? And they determined they would need to take every machine into a clean room. Yeah. It would take them between 2.5 to 4 hours to do that process, and they have 5,000 endpoints. Now, I forget off the top of my head exactly what those numbers are, but for anybody listening, grab your phone, grab your calculator, and do 5,000 by 2.5 hours, and it's a huge number. And they said, we actually can't, there's no way that we can do that. And they've come back and said, why don't we just put IGEL on the endpoint to begin with? And I wrote a blog about 3 weeks ago now. I said, and you may relate to this. I said, when I was growing up, when I was a kid, my family would save up, and once a year we'd go on a 2-week holiday to Spain. Why would we go on a 2-week holiday to Spain? Because the weather's great, the food's great, the beaches are great, the sea, the sand, the warm air. And I always used to think as a kid, why don't we just live there? If that's the great place to be, why don't we just live there? And this is kind of what we're seeing with this, is people are looking at this and going, well, if this is the safe place with the secure IGEL OS, why don't we just live there in the first place? So it's a really fascinating conversation in many ways for me, just because of, I think it's a unique value proposition, and it's starting a unique conversation that most organizations aren't having.
And I'm curious, when you bring that shortfall up in a conversation with a customer, do they get that aha moment or that light bulb moment right in front of your eyes? Do you see that, or does people still not get it? Or?
Genuinely, yes.
Yes.
I did a video call conference with a large insurance company, and he started the call. He knew what the topic was about, and the first thing he said was, "I've read what the call's about, and I've got to tell you, we've got nothing. We don't have a strategy outside of." He said actually what their strategy was they over order. When they put in a laptop order, and it's a huge organization, when they put in a laptop order, they over order by 5%. Those 5% goes to a service provider that they hold on to those laptops. And in the event that people have a problem, the laptop goes, then the service provider ships out the laptop. He said, and that would be their solution. That 5% or whatever's left of that 5% would get shipped out to the execs. It's, well, what about everybody else?
Yeah.
Well, it goes to the critical workers. You employ 100,000 people. Are they not all critical? Yeah. So we genuinely, whether it's been the analysts, whether it's been the customers, it has genuinely been like you say, a bit of a light bulb moment. It's almost a dark light bulb, if you can have that of we really need to think about that.
So for anybody listening, maybe they've got 5,000 machines out there. You've literally just woke them up to this vulnerability that's there. How easy is it for you to get them up and running on IGEL OS and that fleet of computers, etc.? What would they need to do, just for people that are unaware of IGEL?
Great question. As with all things technology, it's actually people and process. Yeah. So the deployment is relatively straightforward. Like I said, we can get the software out using your favorite Windows deployment tools. Yeah. That bit's easy. The bit that needs to make sure is going to work is the people and process. So we need to make sure that this is that the design is done in a way that when you do need to boot into IGEL, that it's going to connect to whatever your backup systems are. That you have a UMS, so our management console, Universal Management Suite, that you have a UMS that's probably not on your network because that might be gone. So have something that's either hosted in the cloud or we have our UMS as a service. So let us take care of the UMS completely separately. So it's in that design. It's making sure that when you do the desktop, the tabletop security exercises, that this is factored in to those and the difficult questions about, okay, so these suddenly 5,000 users reboot into IGEL. What are they going to connect to? Making sure that bit is designed in, that there is some user training. I mean, all the user needs to do is select IGEL OS, but users need to know to select IGEL OS. Now, we're working on some technology that will essentially enable the admins to push a button and just reboot everything to IGEL OS. So if they see an attack starting, because most attacks, we do a demo where we simulate an attack and a user clicks on an attachment and the screen turns red. Yeah. That's not what happens. What happens is the user clicks on an attachment and it seems to work or it seems to do nothing, but under the covers, now the malware's in. Now it's going off to find everything that it can to reinfect or to infect. And then at some point in the future, it's going to get a message from a command and control server, which is going to say, right, now take everything out. So it's not going to be the one by one. So, all your users need to know how to recover, what to do. So that's the part that takes the time. That's the part that we have the professional services and we have partners that can work with customers to make sure that this is all in place and everything is ready, because that's going to be the critical bit.
Wow, food for thought indeed there. And of course, we met in March in Miami, and I think there was 20 announcements there. A few months later, here we are in November, and there has been another 18 announcements. What's excited you so far from everything you've seen and heard?
Yeah, we let the side down this time with only 18 announcements in the. So we're going to try harder for Miami next year, where we'll try and get that number back up. What really excites me. So I've been at IGEL for 2 years now. Like I said, the reason that I joined IGEL was where I think I could see the company going, and and that's not down to me. When I initially came to have the conversation with IGEL, Klaus Osterman had just joined as CEO, and I came and had a conversation with him, and he had the vision of what I was seeing and way beyond. So what is really exciting is seeing now that all of the partners that we now have on board. I think one of the guys has been hashtagging not a thing client, and that's a really the key point for me is, again, it's check.
Yes.
VDI and DAS, absolutely check. But IGEL is much more than that. So having the security partners now on board, Palo Alto, Zscaler, Netscope. We've been doing work with Cisco, with the US government. We put out a press release a week ago on some of the work that we've been doing there. The move into zero trust, which really is that SaaS applications not running at the endpoint, but connecting to critical services. And again, we've got partners like Zscaler and Island in that area. So it's that zero trust, and even now into operational technology. We're seeing big manufacturing companies that are looking at IGEL with absolutely seen this convergence of the IT and the OT networks, and there's been a lot of breaches that have been created because of that convergence. We have a lot of customers. In fact, the world's largest manufacturing customers are IGEL customers. Mm. And we're in that middle zone of, we're in the IT, but we're also in the OT world. A lot of the time that is a VDI use case, but in manufacturing. But what we're seeing is organizations now that are trying to virtualize a lot of the older OT, so the human management interfaces and the PLCs. They're trying to virtualize those to protect them and also to enable them to run on more modern hardware. And IGEL is right in the middle of that and bringing all of that together. And John Walsh, CTO for the critical industries, did a fantastic presentation on how IGEL is going there. So, for me, it's the progress, it's the innovation that's happening, while also, I think, being the best at what we've always done, but these really exciting areas where, again, people should take a fresh look at IGEL if they haven't recently.
Exciting times ahead. And we began our conversation today talking about you DJing when you're in your younger years. You played some pretty big venues there as well, some household names. And of course, you returned to the decks at the end of the IGEL event in Miami, where essentially Shaggy was your warm-up guy.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad.
But word on the street is you'll be returning to the Wheels of Steel again tonight following Snap. Is this right?
It is. So yeah, I'm lucky enough to have the chance to do it again, and it's huge fun. It's a passion of mine. It has been for years. So yeah, we'll go out with a bang tonight.
And I'm curious, looking back at your entire career in an almost full circle moment, are there any DJ skills or skills that you learned back then that still help you in your tech career? Is there anything that complements that out there?
I've never been asked that, so congratulations on a unique question. Timing is everything. As they say. So yeah, timing and just getting the message out there. And we've had a great couple of days at Now and Next. We've delivered a lot of messages. We've delivered the big tunes, if you like, over the last few days. And maybe this is the warm up for Miami in March, I think it is, for the next Now and Next.
For anyone listening just wants to find out more information about anything you talked about today, would you like to point them anywhere?
It is the classic, go to igel.com or just reach out to me, James Millington at igel.com.
Awesome. Well, best of luck tonight. I'll be cheering you on from the dance floor, but more than anything, just thanks for joining me again.
I am looking forward to seeing you tonight.
I think James reminded us today that true resilience isn't only about how quickly we can recover systems, but how prepared we are to keep people connected when disruption strikes. And his work on business continuity at the endpoint level, I think, shows that the future of recovery planning lies as much in user access and endpoints, yes, those devices we all use, as it does in the infrastructure. And as IGEL continues to grow its footprint across IT and OT environments, I think the company's innovation rhythm feels much like one of James's DJ sets. It's layered, collaborative, and built on timing that keeps the crowd moving. And with the next Now and Next event already on the calendar for Miami in March, it seems that the tempo is only going to get faster. So if you'd like to explore IGEL's latest announcements or connect with James directly, I'll include links in the show notes. But please let me know, what is your take? Are you and your organisation giving enough attention to endpoint security, endpoint continuity? Or is it still the best kept secret, the overlooked link in enterprise resilience? I'd love to hear your thoughts. So pop by techtalksnetwork.com, connect with me on LinkedIn at Neil C. Hughes, and let me know. But that's it for today. So I'm going to enjoy one of James's mixes, and I'll return again tomorrow with another guest. Thanks for listening. Speak with you soon. Bye for now.